Hi, I'm Lisa Andria, Transformation Life Coach. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where guests share their inspiring stories of leaping out of their comfort zone with confidence and power, and into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's listen to their life-changing stories so that we can all learn how to gain the courage to take a leap of faith into a life that we love so that we can all be ladies who leap. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to Ladies Who Leap podcast. Today, I am really excited because I have a great friend, a great coach, and a really great mentor of mine, Lucy Faulconer, coming here from Australia. Lucy has over 15 years of experience as a coach and senior management consultant. As the general manager of Being Profile, Lucy leads a global community of coaches who use the Being framework to drive transformation at both individual and organizational levels. She has trained hundreds of coaches, including myself, in this framework, empowering them to support profound shifts with their clients across 53 countries. She holds a degree in psychology and has delved into the world of ontology since 2015. She is the mother to 3 children and has moved with her family between Chile and Australia, where they currently live. Welcome, Lucy, to Ladies Who Leap.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too, because let me tell you, everyone, Lucy, I've learned so much from her, and I am very appreciative of every bit of help that she's given me, including at least, was it 3 um, debriefs on a being profile assessment that I took for myself, with the last one having the greatest breakthrough. I'm ready to take another one, so hold on.
So good.
I was introduced to Lucy through getting involved with the Being Profile Ontological Assessment tool. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. It was created by Ingenesis out of Australia. It's headed by Ashkan Tashbir. And again, we'll talk about it later in the program. But I love to start with a guest's childhood. Now, you shared with me a very insightful and vulnerable story about a challenge you had as a child that became a superpower for you today. What was that? I'd love you to share that with the listeners.
Yeah, let's go straight into it, I guess. No warm up. Yeah, I grew up in the south of Chile, which beautiful part of the world, and went to a very traditional school. And when I was, I'd say around 10, finally got diagnosed. I'm not sure if that's the word, but we got to see that I had dyslexia, and I had been struggling in school for a long time. So I did okay, but I remember that feeling of being way slower than everyone else, not getting my writing correct, and feeling like I was falling behind. And once that was like put on the table, dyslexia was started to be talked about in our house, and of course it wasn't just me and my brother and sister also. We were able to start thinking, and my mother was great there to start thinking, well, how can I learn differently? Because I was definitely not dumb, even though in my head that was the voice that I had constantly. And my mother got me a teacher that would come for 2 hours during the week, and we would sit and draw pictures that would relate to the things I was trying to memorize and learn, but draw pictures and diagrams that allowed me to connect the dots in a way that made sense to me. We'd actually then stand up and go and walk around the garden till I learned it through conversation. And I went from being pretty low in the class to, by the end of me leaving school and going into university, being top of the class and getting into the top university in Chile for psychology. That's the thing that I wanted to study. And just noticing the difference, just one, having that support, someone that was able to see me and teach me in a way that made sense to me, and then supporting me to then take that with me. And it's something I still use. And I got through psychology, reading like huge texts, and through this way of learning. And then also then having that shift in the way I related to myself, that there was actually here something that didn't make me less than, but that made me pretty unique. And today in coaching, I think that's one of the things that I bring, is that I do connect dots. And when a client is speaking to me and sharing their story, or when I was a consultant, it was the same thing, um, bringing in different elements and me being able to create a story and connect certain dots that the other person wouldn't see as logical to them. But my brain is wired a different way. So for me, I just see it. And I think it's one of my biggest assets at the moment.
Yeah, you said it was your superpower.
Yeah.
Interesting, because while you were talking, I remembered the fact that I found out at a certain age, well, my father let it be known to my mother when he got a promotion to get out of the factory and work in an office, and it was more money, and he had to turn it down because he couldn't read. And it became a contention with myself for my whole life that my father wasn't smart enough, he couldn't read. He had somehow duped my mom by looking at the pictures in the in newspaper and then watching the news at the same time and putting the two together, which is interesting that you're talking about pictures, right? Yet when I found out later on, after he was gone, and my stepmother said, "Oh, yeah, basically, he found out later in life that he had the same diagnosis as yourself."
Yeah.
And so my father wasn't stupid. It had nothing to do with him not being able to read. It had to do with the fact that it was many years ago when nobody realized that children had that issue and how to teach them differently. He actually left school in eighth grade.
Yeah.
So he worked in a factory his whole life and didn't do anything that had to do with reading. So it's so amazing that we advanced over the years and you were able to get that help and actually make it your superpower. And I agree. When I see how you worked with me in those debriefs, you do. You see things. I mean, I think you're way more powerful than me in the coaching realm because you see those things, and you actually see them as they're happening. So this is Lady Suleep. So, what do you consider your first or most significant leap in life, and how did it affect your life decisions and how things changed for you?
I think a big leap for us as a family was when we decided to move to Australia. From Chile, my parents are from the UK, so I was always a foreigner in Chile. My family was always abroad. But then I did grow up there and lived there all my life. So by the time I was probably 28, 29, we got this opportunity to come to Australia. And I left a role where I'd been there for 7 years. I was valued, I was seen, I had huge opportunities, I had a tremendous growth in that space, very fast and very early in my career. To come to Australia and say, actually, with my two little girls, one was 3, the other one was 6 months old, and start again and decide that I wasn't going to be employed. I was actually going to pursue my coaching, and I was going to do it while I was spending more time with my girls, because I had worked in consulting that had been extremely high, like fast paced. And and the leap was, I think the main leap for me was that all the validation I had received before came from the university I'd been to, the people I knew, um, the organization in which I worked with that was renowned, like had a big name in Chile, and having to come to Australia and actually say, it's not all of that outside which is going to validate me. It's actually how I relate to myself. I find that that was the deeper work that I had to do, to believe that I didn't need all of that support system. I could actually build it myself again. And it took time, and it took me reaching out to people. Actually, on LinkedIn yesterday, one of the people that first lent me a hand when I arrived in Adelaide commented on one of my posts, and I just remembered back to that moment of saying, those first connections that I made where I had nothing to offer in Australia in a way, but I was still myself. It's just that it wasn't recognized. And I think anyone that has moved countries would know that all that you had that supported you and that built your identity is just not necessarily transferable. You have to build it again, and you have to do it by believing that you're still the same person. And it was always you. It wasn't the system. It was always you. Um,
It's a huge, huge lesson and learning that you have. And it's something that I've just grasped myself is that it comes from inside. It doesn't come from the outside. And you're right, you are the same person. And those that helped you, a lot of times I'll ask who was supportive. Well, when you got into a new country, these are people that reached out and helped you. And
yeah.
that's an amazing thing. But again, if you know what you wanted to do and you believed in yourself, that's how these people were attracted to be able to know that they could help you and you were going to take that help and actually use it to further your coaching work, right?
Well, and that leads me into the distinctions that we work with, right? When you're being responsible, when you're being committed, when you're being resourceful, when you're being authentic, when you're being courageous, that shines through. In the end, the people that start to get to know you start relating to you as someone that represents something, not what you know, but the way you show up.
Mm.
And that's why I think like those little, like those first steps, those first opportunities I had, what they were seeing wasn't everything that I'd done in Chile. They were seeing someone that was being responsible, that was being passionate, that was being super courageous and willing to be vulnerable, to learn from others and being wanting to contribute in any way I could. And I think that's the things that they started to see. I joined ICF and I did volunteering. I went and supported some workshops where I was just like in the background saying, I just want to learn from you. Let me stay in the background. I'll do whatever I can. And they kept those people I think kept seeing that way I was showing up. That is what then reinforced them to then give me opportunities.
Mm.
That became paid opportunities, but at the beginning it didn't start there.
Wow. And this is the whole thing. What drew you to Genesis, which is the company that created the being profile, the assessment tool, the philosophy. How were you drawn to that in the beginning? Because that's another leap that you took by getting involved with that company.
That was a huge leap because I'd been building my business. I had been working as a facilitator and consultant for other organizations. I was living in Brisbane by then. And the leap was to see an organization, a philosophy, and a conversation within a community that deeply resonated with me. I can't explain it. Like it was never about the money. Like it was never about the role. It was never about the security. It was always about there is something about what these people are putting out there into the world that I want to be a part of. And the people in it, I said, I want to work with them. And if I can build a partnership with anyone in the world, those are the ones I want to go and build it with because of what I was seeing around their big vision, the the way they'd articulated the conversation. And I'm saying them, but it's us now, right? Because I've been part of it now for as GM for 3 years, nearly 3 years. And I think we've faced many, many challenges, and we still do. But it's how can we come back to what we deeply believe in, and it is that our way of being and how we use the language of how we restore the integrity of our being constantly when we drop the ball, when something doesn't work, when we plan something and we don't achieve it in the timeline that we want it, is how do we have those conversations that allow us to restore.
So you're literally using the being profile framework in working within the company that created it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I love how you said this is a community that you felt that resonated with you. I had someone in the company reach out to me on LinkedIn, and it wasn't the typical reach out. It wasn't, oh, I can make you $100,000 a year if this six digits, or and just kind of all fake. But it was a very genuine, just a couple sentences, and it intrigued me. And so I made an appointment to talk to you. And I loved what you had to say. Again, it resonated with me. And then I said, I need to take the assessment. So it is basically starts with the being profile assessment, which is not like other assessments that put you in a box. I just want to explain. It's more like a snapshot in time, and it's used for transformation because it gives you a healthy or unhealthy score for 31 aspects of being. And Lucy mentioned quite a few. Most of them, what's on the inside that you can't really see. And it's topped off with three meta factors, which is awareness, integrity, and it's really integrity like a table, which has one of the legs off. You're either whole or broken. And then the last one being effectiveness, and then four moods. And I'm going to list them simply because there's only four, and it's very important. Care, because what you care about is what you focus on. Vulnerability, which I will be completely vulnerable and let everyone know that that's always my lowest score, as Lucy knows. And then fear and anxiety, because there's a difference between fear and anxiety. And the rest of them are 16 aspects of being of things you can't see in yourself, and eight, I believe, of aspects of being that you can see in everyone, kind of like persistence and um, what is one I'm thinking?
Confidence,
Confidence.
assertiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, those kind of things. So I'd love for you to better explain than what I said what the being profile is and what ontology is, because it's an ontological tool. So how do you explain ontology for those that are listening?
So one, you explained it beautifully. So I love what you just said. But I'd say ontology is the study of reality, of being. So when we say we take an ontological approach, what we're looking at is what is actually there. So when you look at human beings, is what are those qualities that exist, no matter your culture, your race, like your different identities that you might have, it's how you are as humans. And so, for example, there's no human being that would can say that they haven't experienced fear in their life. Fear is a fundamental aspect of being human. It keeps us safe, it allows us to avoid risk, it it moves us forward, and it can also stop us and constrain us. So what's different to each of us is how we relate to that. And you mentioned that. So that's why what we measure is the relationship we have with each of these ways of being. And the combination of all of these 31 that we have in the profile and the relationship we have with them is unique to each of us. We do see patterns. We definitely see patterns, but what we're in is the discovery with the person that we have in front of us saying, if this is the map, we've got 31 aspects of being that are there, that are contributing to the way you show up, to your effectiveness, to the way you lead, then how are you relating to them? And the way that you're relating to them, how is that impacting then your achievements, your successes, your fulfillment in life? And when we take this ontological approach, is we say, let's get real. And I think part of what people experience with us is that we're not here to tell you it's all beautiful and nothing is going to be challenging. Sort of no. One of the biggest vulnerabilities for us as human beings is uncertainty. We don't know the future, and we can't know. We can predict it as best to our ability, but we don't know. And this, so for also, for example, if you jump off a cliff, it doesn't matter what you think. Gravity is going to show you it's there. So there's certain aspects of being human that are real, and then how we relate to them will make the biggest difference in terms of then how effective we are in life.
Yeah, and then that the how we relate to them and the health scores of how you are being with all these aspects also relates to your fulfillment in life and how you're fulfilled. And I was thinking when you were talking that even with fear or anxiety, especially anxiety that a lot of people feel and encounter in their lives, that mitigating the risk by being prepared if something was to go wrong. Like if you're doing a presentation in front of people and you're using a PowerPoint and a computer, if that's to go down, make sure you have some paper, paper that you can pass out to everybody. And understanding that something can go wrong, but being prepared for it. It's kind of part of the whole aspect of being okay with anxiety is even taking those extra steps to mitigate risk, right? And understanding that's an extra step you have to take so that you can deal with the anxiety of doing something new, which is where anxiety comes up, something unknown to you that you just have this anxiety over without even
Mm.
realizing or knowing, or even the idea of what may happen being completely unrealistic, but you actually experience it anyway.
Yes, so as a great coach I was working with said to me, Lucy, you keep future tripping. So what does that mean? You trip over the future and the future isn't here yet. And instead of preparing and looking at what you can do now, you're just tripping yourself over, thinking about the what if, the what if, the what if. And and the thing is that there's a lot of energy that can go and be wasted in that if it doesn't come back to you being able to make decisions and stay the course sometimes. Like I know, and we've spoken about this, like building a business is full of what ifs, is full of uncertainties, and it's full of ups and downs. So how can you go back into grounding yourself and staying the course because of the purpose you have, because of the contribution you want to make? Because sometimes the grass is greener on the other side, but actually it's never is. So staying the course, even though those uncertainties are there and those what ifs are there.
And even having the freedom to change your mind if you want to. Yeah.
Yes.
Freedom is one of those aspects of being, and it is knowing that you have options and that you can always make a shift or make a change if that is what comes to you as the better choice in life or the better change that you want to make with your business or anything like that. I'm going through a little shift myself, so that's why that came into play. And I'm thinking about freedom to make a choice, freedom being one of the aspects, right? So this is a question that actually you taught me,
Okay.
and it comes from you. It's you taught me how to ask this question to open up a client's mind to the possibilities of being more aware of your inner self. To use it, and I use it even with outside of the being profile because I do want people to know on the call there are only a certain amount of us here in the United States, although it's growing because Lucy is the trainer for the being profile practitioners who do the debriefs. It's about a 2 hour length of time after you've taken an assessment, and it's this practitioner who does the debrief and goes through and helps you with open-ended questions and a lot of listening to
Mhm.
get you to understand more about yourself and become more aware and understand what your shadows are and what your strengths are and how all of those relate. But you told me to ask the question of what do you feel would have been the cost if you had not taken on the role of being a coach, of not having the kind of impact that you provide to help people to be more effective, happy, and have a higher sense of self?
Honest answer is I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, because I made this choice, so I'm with the cost of making this choice. So the cost of making this choice is all the other things that I haven't done, all the things that I've stopped doing because of focusing my energy. I could be, working for a consultancy office here in Brisbane. I could be in the corporate world, and I think that all could have been possible, and it still is. But choosing to do this has to do with something way bigger than, I think, like the conversation of success. What does success even mean? Because sometimes I might be tempted for all of those things because I think they'll be safer, they'll be more secure, they'll be, um, they will be more recognized as successful if you're in this big company with a big role. But the cost would have been all the conversations and all the contribution that I've been able to make to all of those people that I've trained. And I think there's something very, very powerful in the role I get to play is that I know, Lisa, that for you, everything I've contributed to you and the training that you've gone through with us and the conversations that we've had that have shifted you then have a ripple effect in all of those clients that you then go and work with. And coaches are getting trained. It's a huge industry. I want to have a say on how some of those coaches are getting trained because I believe that our approach is powerful, is deep. It doesn't bring morality in. It doesn't categorize people. I think it is deeply powerful in the way that we approach transformation, approach the development and growth of human beings, and then the contribution that that can mean for the world. And I believe we deeply need it. So I want to have a say. I want to have a say in that space. And when I get a say and I get to train a coach, I know I have a ripple effect in all of those people, even their families and all the life of the people around them. So I'm not sure if answered your question, but the cost would have been, you know what the cost is? I would have limited my impact.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If
And I
you
believe that this role, this community is where I can have the biggest impact because of that ripple effect I can create through others.
And I'm talking about impact too. From what I understand, there is a was a overall driving force for Ashkan Teshvir to even create the being profile through his many, many years of researching, talking to very successful people. In the NLP world, we call it modeling, really understanding how and they got there. And he's very much a philosopher. He's a fascinating man. But from your working in the Ingenesis company, what was his driving force to create this particular framework to work with people and to better their lives?
And I'll do my best to be able to articulate it because, of course, it's such a deep drive that was there for him. But I've heard him share the story many times. And it was actually all the shadows. And when we say the shadow, all the pain, not only that he saw out there in the world, but also within himself. And this, when you look at a human being, that we're driven by the light and the shadow. Yeah. And that shadow side of us is always there. So for example, there's a part of me that just wants to scream at my kids. Yeah. Sometimes more than I'd want to admit. And we interrupt it. I interrupt it. Why? Because I choose the light and I let that shadow side of me, I can bring compassion, I bring responsibility, so I stop it. That moment where I think Ashkan articulates that shadow side of him was so strong and there was so many things that he could see that were wrong in the world. He channeled that into creating something that would actually go and contribute. And that by creating his work, by bringing more awareness, by bringing more language and distinctions to this work, to these light and shadow, to these ways of being, he could have a bigger ripple effect also in with his work. But in the foreword of his book, Being, he writes it beautifully, that moment where he realized, he said, no, I can't not do something about this.
Yeah,
And channeled all his energy to go and create something bigger than himself.
I do have to point everyone to the Human Being book by him, Ashkan Tashvir, because it gives you're able to understand what the being profile and the framework and everything about it. It's kind of an easier read than some of his other books, and it's the one that I have close by all the time with all the tabs. And
Yes.
I even use it when I'm being the being profile practitioner and going through a debrief with someone. And I will say in my particular program, it's one of the first steps that I take because it really gives me a synopsis and an overview of this person's lights and shadows, as you know, or even strengths, so that they can even, understand where they shine. Because it's something also it's good to know your shadows and understand where you need to improve and have a better relationship with a certain aspect of being. It's also good to know where you have your strengths,
Mm.
because in a way, if you can complement the things together, you can actually improve your effectiveness as a leader of your own life, because I work mostly with use it with personal clients. So you've had, I know, out of all these years of what you've done with your psychology degree and everything, you've had a lot of clients. I'm sure you have a lot of success stories. Is there any particular one that stands out for you that you could share with us?
I'll share one that, because I know also this is for women out there. I'd share one that I had this client that came to me after being um, asked to leave a role. And she left, and when she left was quite like doubting herself. She'd had a really bad time. And through the coaching, we realized, and she was able to articulate the amount of harassment and and aggression that she was receiving from her boss. And that she, in her mind, kept saying to herself, if only I could do better. If only I could be better. If only I could resist to show him that I'm not weak. That's the conversation that she was having with herself. And it was, I don't want to be weak, so I don't want to give in and show him that he's won. We unpack that through the coaching, and one, the amount of pain that she actually went through just to sustain that belief that she had to prove to others that she wasn't weak. And as we coach that shifted into that place where she knew she wasn't weak. And she also knew that she didn't have to be perfect and that she didn't have to um, always show up as if she had everything under control and resolved. And bringing in so much more compassion into the relationship she had with herself, and that from there she could set very different boundaries, raise her hand when things weren't going down the right path, um way before she had to feel this, that I need to put up with this to show others. And why I share this story, because unfortunately I think that's a pattern that many women can relate to, that having to show up really strong so that no one could ever think that we're weak. And our strength isn't armoring up and just putting up a fight. Our strength is in that we are deeply compassionate, that we know right from wrong very easily. And sometimes we might not be heard, but then we don't have to put ourselves through it necessarily. We can find different ways. We don't, like, putting up with it isn't the only way. There's so many other ways that you can go about it. And it all starts with actually acknowledging here that you're right. Like, that's out there in the world. You're right.
Yeah, her
And you can
boss had
say,
his own issues. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And so they weren't her fault. It was him projecting onto her. I had a very wise woman say to me once, when someone says or does something to you that's not nice, let's just put it that way, they're actually talking to themselves.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, that's a really good story and a lesson for people that are listening, because that brings in imposter syndrome and perfectionism and the fact that we as women want to do it and be it all.
Yeah.
And it's just not possible. If there is someone that either isn't going to like you or isn't going to treat you well, it has to do with their own issues. As long as you love yourself and do what is right and be the wonderful, compassionate person that you are, which is definitely a woman's strength, because we can identify things that probably a lot of men can't identify, especially in business. They can't kind of read between the lines, which is a lot of times what you need to do, because establishing relationships with people is how things get done in business. As far as I'm concerned, that's what that's all about.
And And in those situations that are so tense and so intense in terms of the amount of aggression that you're receiving, what was happening, at least in her case, was this tunnel vision. So they stop seeing everything else that they are, how great they are with their team. Actually, when she left, she was so surprised about the feedback she received from other people in the company, but she stopped seeing it that. She couldn't see it because it had all become about proving to this one person that she was good enough, that she could sustain the pain, and that would then prove that she wasn't someone to be knocked down easily. But she lost vision of all the rest, and that's where coaching comes in. If you are in one of those situations where all you can think about and all you can see is the one situation in front of you, then that's when you need coaching because you're missing out. You are blocking from your own view your ability to see what else you could be doing, looking at who else could you have in your corner, what other ways of approaching a situation would there be, and create very, very different results if you were to see it.
And we can take that story of the woman working for someone and having that tunnel vision and that situation and apply it to people in relationships. It's exactly the same thing. As you were talking about, I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what happens in relationships too, is just, okay, I am going to make sure that I give everything that this person needs, so then they will love me the way I want them to love me. Same thing.
Yep.
Very,
Yep.
very relatable, very similar. So, anything else that I think everyone should know about the being profile? Because to me, it was just a godsend. And you're right, the community, the coaches in the Ingenesis group, in the being profile framework, and that whole community, everyone is so vulnerable when they get on the calls. We have monthly calls and we talk about specific aspects of being and really delve into certain parts of it so that we can learn more about it by working together. But everyone is easily talks about what their shortcomings are and what they've learned over the past month or something new that they've learned with a new client or about themselves. And it's so nice because it helps me to understand that vulnerability is powerful. It builds trust. And so when all of these people in our community are extremely vulnerable with talking about things about themselves and maybe some struggles that they have even with clients, it makes it easier to feel safe to be able to learn from them. Yeah. You've
Yeah.
harbored that community even yourself, Lucy, on those monthly calls because you had those up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that because I think that is one of the things that we're most proud of is the ability to be a community and bring in the side of us that is working and is successful and is achieving, but also that part of us that is maybe stopping us or getting in the way. And I'd say that when we talk about the beam profile, there is a tool, right? There is an assessment. And our vision and our mission around what we're doing is so much bigger than that. We want people to have access to this framework in different ways. And the book is one way, the articles on the platform are another way. Some of the events that we run that are open, like we do the Let's Get Real, that's a 3 hour session workshop where we get real around different topics. The next one is about success. I think that's why it's sort of in the background for me. And we get real around what does it mean? And this conversation about philosophy and ontology can sound very far away from people, but it's in your day to day. It's everywhere. It is extremely tangible once you look. And human beings are expert at avoiding and looking away and putting our head in the sand. And if you want that level of confrontation, and support, like we're a perfect community for that, I believe.
Yeah, and Lucy is doing cohort groups specifically for certain parts of the world, like the US. And so please reach out to her, and I'll have her contact information all over the place, or myself, on how to go through those as a coach, and just to understand and explain to them, how the cohort group works, because it's specifically for coaches. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're a coach, we run different cohorts that are introductory to our work, to our framework. And the way we do it is what we call the self-discovery course. So they get to experience the being profile for themselves, go through a recorded program that allows them to understand the theory behind it, the self-reflection, and then also come to 5 group sessions that are very much group coaching sessions where you get to explore what you're uncovering for yourself, but also do it with a group of coaches that are doing the same thing as you. And it creates that shared accountability, that shared space of learning where you're not only learning about your insights, but you're also witnessing the insights of someone else that then might turn on some light bulbs for yourself. And we do that in a scholarship basis. So we really want to encourage coaches to come and learn about what we're doing, experience it, not from a theory point of view, but an application in ourselves
And
approach.
I'm telling you, I would highly recommend it. I right from the very first start when I had mine done, and the aha moments. I always like to say that because most of my clients that have taken it, including myself, have aha moments, because you don't always want to confront everything. And the being profile finds it out. And it's put in your face. And you're going, oh, okay, okay, I have to face this now, and let's talk about it. And to me, the biggest the biggest one thing on the in the being profile is awareness. You were talking about it. You have to have a high sense of awareness of how you are being in the world, how the world views you, how you speak to others, how they view you, how you handle yourself in the world. Because if you don't have that sense of awareness, you're kind of living in a almost like a fake reality in a sense. And that's nowhere to be if you want to truly transform yourself and really get to a higher level of fulfillment in life.
Well, I would say it's an effective, like basically, it's an effective. You're going to come up with challenges and problems, and you don't know where they're coming from, and it's your awareness that's the first step.
Yeah. So I ask everyone to share their favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation. So,
Yeah.
what do you have for us? Because to me, that's always tops this whole interview off at the end.
And it's great that we just spoke about awareness. And I used this yesterday that I renewed my PCC for another few years, and I posted it, and it seems very accurate for me at the moment. That is from Albert Einstein, that he says, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know.
I call myself a life student specifically for that purpose. Yeah. Learning.
Yeah, and I think this quote, why it resonates so much, because it comes with so much humility. And I think wisdom is being able to let go of certainty and wanting things to be a certain way and fall in love with the curiosity and with the wonder that can be there right in front of us if we are vulnerable enough to let it in.
Yeah. So, what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you? I will have a lot of,
I think LinkedIn is my place where I normally post. There's articles that I've written. You can always send me a message and get in touch. And if not, my email, that's lucy@beingprofile.com. That's an easy way also.
yeah, and the beingprofile.com website has a lot of information. I even have on my ladieswholeap.com have a area talking about the being profile and how I use it. And it's my first step to opening up people's awareness of their inner being. So
Yeah.
that's the first step. Well, thank you so much, Lucy,
Thank you.
for being on the Ladies Who Lead podcast. This was long overdue. We've known each other for quite a few years now, And I'm just so happy to have been introduced to this particular framework and this being profile and the ontological tool and the whole community. I feel like I'm partly an Australian now.
Yes, you are. We can't wait to have you here and see you in person. And thank you, Lisa. And this is an acknowledgement to you for what you've created and the space that you've created for women to come and share their story and show show all of their light and all of their passion and all of their what they want to contribute to the world. And I think we need more spaces like this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. And remember to like, subscribe, comment, and if you have a great story to tell, reach out to me because I'd love to share it. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.